Yeah. Yes, sir. Final flight, y'all. Woo. Good evening, friends and family. I'm now a trained paramotor pilot. So as you can see, I'm soloing and I'm comfortable enough to pull out my cell phone and take a quick selfie video. The pilot that you saw that was climbing up to my level, he got up to my level, and then we bumped wings. And before he got there, I stopped the video, stowed it, grabbed my controls, because that was my first experience doing that, which is pretty cool. We'll save catching that on video for another time. Yesterday was a day full of touch and goes. So I did 17 touch and goes. And it was an ideal day for touch and goes because it was an overcast and there was moderate to getting close to strong winds, but the gusts were pretty manageable. And in those scenarios, in that scenario, a touch and go is very, very easy. And the reason is because there's a strong headwind. When you get to the ground, you don't have to walk much at all. In fact, I was able to stand on the ground and then relaunch, only taking one step in one of those attempts. There is video of those things, but the instructor hasn't passed it on to us just yet, so I don't have it to show. I don't know how many times you'd want to watch me do a touch and go, but I'll start with the cool looking ones, and then the trashy looking ones I'll put towards the end. Today we had our first cross-country flight, which is a flight where I wouldn't say you couldn't see the airport anymore. You could clearly see the airport, but you're not over the airport anymore. The surrounding area to the south of Lake Wales Airport is pretty wide pasture land. It's largely grassy, landable, with a few trees for you to take a look at, fly around, a few ponds to take a look at, fly around. So it's a pillow fight in terms of crossing over land at any amount of distance. I would guess we probably went maybe 1.5 miles, 2 or 3 miles, something like that, away from the airport. And we didn't go very far, and the reason for that was, again, we had a strong headwind. And those students that took the larger, safer wings had a hard time making any progress. It's called paraparked, and that basically means that your airspeed matches your headwind, and your ground speed is basically nothing, if not going backwards. And although the headwind wasn't so strong that you couldn't do anything about going backwards, but if you were climbing on one of those wings, you were going backwards. And the reason for that is when you climb, you pitch forward, and because you can see that now the profile of the wing is now catching more air, your forward progress is actually quite slow as you're rising. For a paramotor, the fastest way to make headway is no power, where you're actually pitching down slightly. That way the profile of the wing is very flat towards the incoming wind. And so if you, between using that and staying lower to the ground where the winds are not as strong, even the people on the larger wings were able to get somewhat out and were able to land safely. However, I was on one of the lower rated wings, which has a higher airspeed, so I really didn't have much of an issue um, uh, getting out to our intended destination. A quick note, the guy that you saw coming up towards me, he's on a Moster, and I was at full power. So if you're wondering what the difference between the two motors were, that's it right there. So he was at full power, I was at full power, and you can see him coming up to me. So at this point, I am going to continue to fly at Lake Wales. I'm going to pretty much keep doing what I'm doing. Touch and goes, maybe some easy cross countries over the pasture land. Get used to just flying, just doing it and getting more comfortable with it. I was pretty comfortable with this one, but not completely relaxed. The idea of having to watch where you're going, look for other pilots, manage the wind situation, manage your wing, you know, whole 9 yards is still a lot to think about, and it's hard to relax. And in fact, you don't want to relax too much, because you do have to keep make sure that you're always in a safe place where if your motor goes out, then you know you've got a good place to land. So as I was taking the video, you saw I was probably 800-900 feet, 1,000 feet up, something like that. Full power. That's completely, and you saw I wasn't even holding the controls. So you know, in those scenarios you can relax and take it all in. But if you fly lower, you know, you have to have your hands on the control, be ready to exit your seat if you you know, have any issues, whatever. So it's just a lot to continue to think about. All of the students were successful in the training. They all successfully launched and landed on their own and did the cross country. In terms of comparing myself to the other students, I did not learn the quickest, but I was the most comfortable in the air, and I attribute that to my sailplane experience. So things like doing touch and goes, staying up longer than everyone else, even though it was a little bit more turbulent, and it was still safe. The instructors were there. They didn't say, you know, it's getting too strong. And also piloting skills, lining, you know, understanding how to line things up in a headway so that, you know, when you come back around, you did your turn where you want to be, stuff like that. It just comes with experience, and I've kind of already had some of that. So I don't think I learned the fastest. Also, I had the most injuries. The second flight on the first day, I crammed my toenail into my shoe really hard on takeoff, and I took off, but my shoe wasn't tied well. It was a new shoe, you know. And the doctor today said that my nail's going to come off and a new nail's going to come in, so that kind of sucks. I also had the most bruises. So this arm right here gave me the call sign bruiser. They always give one of the pilots that has the most bruises the call sign bruiser, and that was me as well. Overall, I had a really great experience. I can't think of a better way to learn how to be an excellent pilot in the shortest amount of time possible. I was able to completely shut everything off and only focus on paramotor training for the entire 2 weeks. And even though we only were able to fly during the day, I was able to think about what I had learned and what I needed to do different, or what I wanted to do, or, you know, or the modules that were coming up those evenings, because I think I took a nap every day, and almost every day. And even though we didn't always do things physically in the afternoon, I think for me, especially with my stamina, it was very welcome to not do anything in the evenings, because especially those first few days of no wind launches and trying to run with a motor on the back for the first time, that was really taxing physically, and it took all day, all night. and woke up the next day. Of course, I was having issues sleeping as well, which attributed towards my fatigue. So the pace of the class ended up being, I would say, perfect for me. By yesterday, I was to the point where not only had I recovered physically somewhat and I was well rested, but I had the skills in order to do 17 touch and goes in the course of an hour and a half, or however long we were out there. So that was the course is very well put together. As you saw, the progression from day 1 to day 5 to the first launch really prepares you for every aspect of having a first successful launch. And as I said, my first 7 launch attempts were into the air, and it wasn't until my 8th attempt that I did not go into the air, even though I learned a lot. And I'm very glad that I've started to have failed attempts, because it shows me what a bad wing feels like, a wing that you don't commit to a launch on. So I got to experience those things as well. And also, I must say that the instructors are they're really invested in your success. Also, it was 1 instructor per 2 students at all times, and those 2 things you can't buy. Either you find people that are that dedicated to teaching or instructing for training. They're far and few in between. So the fact that they've got that going on down here is really something special. As far as a vacation experience goes, the thing I'm thankful for the most is that my work is in a position where I was able to actually walk away from the cell phone, and things were okay. Thankfully, I didn't have to get pulled into work. This was actually the first time in the 7.5 years that I took a vacation that I didn't have to answer work questions while I was on vacation, and that was awesome. So yeah, thank you everyone that was keep holding down the fort while I was gone. In terms of what it's like to fly, it really is how you dream flying would be, minus the loud motor on your back. If once you get into the air, you see someplace you want to go, you can just go right on over there. And one of the interesting things about paramotors that I think I've mentioned is that there's no negative G's on a paramotor. And what I mean by that is, perhaps if you've ever been on a roller coaster that's going over a crest and it crests a little too quickly, and you feel yourself lifting out of your seat, and then the shoulder straps are actually pulling you back down, so that's negative G's. That's a situation that never happens in paramotor. You're always swinging with gravity pulling you down. So unlike in an airplane, sailplane, or any other kind of airplane, perhaps even you felt this momentarily in a passenger airplane, the idea of rising up out of your seat, this idea that you feel like you're falling suddenly when you're flying, just doesn't happen when you're a paramotor. It can happen, certainly. You hit a down thermal or whatever, but nothing's ever pulling you down. So especially when you're on a calm day, that it never takes you out of that moment, right? So when you're imagining in a dream that you're flying, it's always perfect, right? You're just flying around, you get to go where you want to go. Well, on a perfectly smooth day that's just silky smooth as glass, that's what it's like in a paramotor. And it's just the wind hitting your face, and you could even power down or even stop the motor and just glide through the air. And in that situation, all you hear is the wind hitting your face, going over the sail, that sort of thing, while you maneuver. And then of course you can start your motor up and then go, or otherwise land. But it's absolutely as close as you can get to what you imagine flying would be, because there's nothing in front of you, you can't see anything, there's no canopy, there's no control, and that sort of thing I think even gets long-time pilots that try the sport. And one final note before I end this video. So Vasily, the gentleman that decided to stay home with his family instead of doing the training, you know, I hope that you got this, be a part of this with us. And the lady that took your spot, she really enjoyed herself. So thanks for following along, and I hope you enjoyed it. As far as future videos go, I have 2 more planned videos. I'm going to put together a video of the touch and goes that I did yesterday, because some of them are actually kind of cool looking. And I have another video I want to do. It's going to be really short, just a few random things that happened, and I'll throw those into a video as well, or maybe make it part of the same video. I probably won't have more video until I decide to get a GoPro and put it on my head, and then, you know, maybe go do something interesting, make a video out of that, because I don't think there'll be very many other opportunities of people standing around taking video of me, you know, doing my thing. So I think that's probably going to be it. Have one last clip for you on the way out, and thanks for joining me on this adventure.